number one is I just want to acknowledge how uncomfortable this is to have a conversation around a table where we have to have a conversation because it's being recorded. But like I said earlier, with each one of you, I've had conversations where I thought, damn it, this should have been recorded, because there's people who need that wisdom and that information. So that's the idea here. I'm going to quickly start with maybe just you guys introducing yourself. Ursula, if you can maybe just start with a quick, who are you for the people?
Sure. My name is Ursula Fear. I am a senior talent program manager for an organization called Salesforce. And I've been building critical and scarce skills in South Africa for over 27 years. And I'm really passionate about what technology can do in terms of building our economy and, most importantly, building fit-for-purpose skills and jobs.
Awesome. Thank you. Christiaan.
I'm Christiaan. I've worked in software all my life, various stages of it, starting fundamentally in building software and then moving into managing teams that build software and everything around that. Now I lead a business that builds software, and always from the point of view how software changes the world, solves problems for customers, add value, create things that make the world work in a better way. And obviously a key component in all of that is the software, is the technology doing something, but ultimately it's rests on people who makes that happen. And so that's what I do.
And that's why I've got you here, because I know you're a techie with that human side of you. Karin, just quickly explain yourself to why are you here?
Well, I'm here. So my name is Karin. I'm a psychologist. Hopefully here to read your minds and torture you with some difficult questions. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, excellent. I'm really interested to hear what you guys have to say.
So maybe to set the scene, I think we spoke about it earlier when I read a story this morning, the Babylon story of, this king building this, what we could call a system. And at the end of the time, he stood on top of this thing and he said, this is my thing. And when you read that story, and when I look into customers, it feels like it's something similar. We raise up these monuments, and you've got all these people trying to, build this monument, which I've also seen over the years now turn into what are actually sandcastles, because markets come and go, and it just flattens it, and then we need to do it again. Coupled with that, we spoke about it earlier, is Peter Drucker's idea of what a system is. And a system is actually a bunch of parts working together. And I want to put one part, which is software, away and not talk about that. It's one of the parts in a business, because the business is a system, but the critical parts are the customer, the product, the service, and the people in the business. And every time I speak to customers, it just comes back to this people thing. People. Now, the last episode, we also spoke about people, but I think in this one, what I'm trying to get through in this message, and it doesn't have to stick to that, is what are we doing in South Africa to build that part of the system, to build it, to retain it, to make it valuable, and ultimately reduce that joblessness ratio, because it's our responsibility, it's not government's responsibility. So maybe with that, to start with, Christiaan, I don't know if you've got anything to add on to that.
Well, I do think we are very interesting dynamic in South Africa in terms of skill sets. And I'm reminded every year that something that I always find very fascinating is this, and I haven't looked at this statistic in a long time, but about 65% of children reach the age of 10 in this country and they cannot read for meaning. So if we think about the people who start their careers in the workforce, The amount of hurdles that you have to overcome to get that, even if you combine it with 2 out of 3 kids in this country grow up without a father in the house. So if you are able to get through school, get a university degree and apply for a job at a business, the amount of adversity that you have overcome is extraordinary. And aside from the world of work of serving customers and solving problems and so on, the ultimate rewarding work to do is to transform people. You transform yourself by transforming people, and what is a greater endeavor every day than doing that?
I like that.
I love what you're saying, because when you come down to the most common denominator, and if you look at the world of software and you look at the complexity of what technology is doing, we're expecting that the baseline of individual that's going to enter into this world has got certain things in place. So when you look at the ability to synthesize, the ability to think cognitively or metacognition, to apply a thought process, to question, to articulate appropriately, to be able to understand efficiently, all of those things, we are making the assumption that that's in place. And so I fundamentally believe that businesses have become educationalists, whether we like it or not. And the sooner we appreciate that we've become educationalists, the quicker I believe that we can be on our way in terms of driving employment. And this morning, driving here, yesterday they released the latest unemployment stats of, from 31.9% down to 31.4%. We are in a crisis. And until we start to acknowledge the fundamental, foundational, deficit that we have in order to create a world of because we live in a world of complexity, whether we like it or not. And it's not going to just happen. So, for me, you can't teach if we don't have the ability to read for meaning, if we don't have the ability to process information, to be able to, to deal with information and unpack it and have a point of view and all of those kind of things, we're going to be stuck. And we keep getting stuck.
But we spoke about it just before the camera started rolling, was where do you get that? Because we were talking about, is it modeled? Do you learn it in university?
No, I think we have gotten to a point in time, you can't rely on a single party. You can't rely on government. You can't just rely on institutions. You can't just rely on the individual. You can't just rely on an employer. You can't just rely. There is a collective intelligence that we now need to start to deal with. It's about everybody sitting at the table and equally starting to unpack.
And that doesn't have to be an organized committee.
No, it doesn't need to be an organized committee.
Because that never works.
When you start to, we've got to be able, through that collective intelligence, we've got to be able to influence each of those different parties. I'll give you a perfect example. You say universities. Universities, the structure of universities, Council of Higher Education, a qualification in South Africa has a lifespan of 5 years. 5 years, and the curriculum stays put. Our world of software, especially the world I come from, we have got a new release every 4 months, okay? So how do we influence this structure, which is so regarded and respected in South Africa, but how do we legitimately say you need to influence your curriculum so that it is building relevant, fit-for-purpose skills that can enter into our world, and we don't sit with one of the highest unemployed groups of people, which are graduates.
Yeah.
So I fundamentally believe sharpening the pencil together, because no separate party has the answer. We have to evoke this collective intelligence where we open and we sit down and we all start to change and morph and amend how we actually contribute to what this new picture needs to look like.
I just, how does a company balance getting someone that already has a level of competence, or feeling the pressure that they have to now almost train this person? I would imagine if I employ somebody, a graduate, like you say, I would expect a certain level of competence. And it almost sounds like you're saying, don't expect that. You have to cultivate and almost train in your company?
There's a couple of challenges when it comes to entry-level talent entering into an organization. The first thing I fundamentally believe where we've gone wrong is we leave it up to business. Here's Lochner, he's got all the potential in the world, and we throw them into the business and we hope for the best. And we have to get to a point where we need to understand that hope is not a strategy. And when you build experience, when you build the application, it's a science. It's a work integrated learning is a science. And we, I always describe it as we've asked the organization to write the book. You experts, you should know what to do when it comes to, bringing in this very amazing person with all the potential in the world, but you guys must do it. We've dealt with creating, entry-level jobs through a training angle. Let's train them. Let's give them a training course. And because we've given them a training course and they've passed or they've got certification, they can do it. They cannot. And so when we have to unpack what is work integrated learning. How do we legitimately start to build the ability for people to do basic tasks into more complex tasks? And we'll tell you, in the world of business, the currency of expertise is grown through trust. You can come into any organization, doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter what you know, but you start with, can we start to give you stuff, and can you do projects? Can you do this? And can I trust you? And can I give you more complex? And that's how we do it. So we've put a lot of expectation on organizations with no proper structure around how we build that application and that work integrated learning.
But how do you build trust? So I think it's important, because I've seen in your team, I don't know their backgrounds. So we work with, in my world, I see two different workers in our customers. It's the people who orchestrate the system and the users of the system. It seems like almost employment has gone that way. Like you're either a user of the system or you're orchestrating how the users work. And it seems like the people who've got more legs to grow are working on this side, where they are more orchestrators than. So in your team, what did you have to do? We don't have to name names, but is there an individual you can think of, listen, we got him or her at this point, and mixing that, what we spoke about earlier, the working from home versus working at the office thing, because in our world, it's a big topic, in your world as well. If people want to appoint, but he wants to work remotely. How does that affect you? I think you said it earlier. How do you learn how to work?
Yeah, look, I think maybe I'll take a bit of a step back and just tell you a little story, which I found very humorous the first time I learned it. Now, some of you might know who George R.R. Martin is. He wrote all the Game of Thrones books and so on. He's always been complimented for writing very good, strong female characters. So I saw this one interview where they were discussing that with him. And you could see after a while he's getting annoyed with this discussion, because the person asks him, how are you able to write such good, strong female characters? He said, well, I have a secret weapon. I pretend that they are real people. And so I think this concept of the people who arrive at your doorstep, like your point on collective intelligence, they are now your workforce. And they arrive at your doorstep with all the formative experiences in their life, or the lack thereof. And I think in our dynamic in South Africa, it's very important to always kind of think about the lack thereof. What is the lack thereof in this individual? That's sometimes counterintuitive, because you don't think of a lack thereof if you've never had it yourself. So you have to go a step beyond that. But I always distinctly remember the moment where I realized that people who work in tech industry or software where I am, they are people who fundamentally excel at that, because they started life being interested in a thing. They were interested in software, or they were interested in testing, or some form of a subject matter. Now they enter the world, and what's very bizarre always in the aptitude test, they ask, do you want to work with people or not? And it's such a bizarre question, because the world of work is about working with other people. And so if you realize, okay, these people arrive here, they're interested in things, working with people is not natural to them, especially because they're more introverted, etc. You have to really work intentionally at helping them to work well with other people. and being very focused on that. So that's really been a priority for me in the business, is develop what you could, I guess, collectively call the EQ skills of people. And you see it in different forms, like people arrive there and you look at whatever email they write to a client, and then it's like, okay, well, now let's take a step back. If you send that email to you, would you like it, this, that, and the other, maybe this, that, and so on. It's all about teaching people how to interact with other people. And at some stage, your subject matter skills take you to a certain level in your career, and what takes you further is your effectiveness in working with people. So, this collective intelligence, everybody has to play their role. But in business, I can't focus every day on what role everybody else should play. I can focus on what role I can play with my team and leaders and managers and so on. And that's generally where I try to consume myself.
If we can maybe touch specifically, because it struck me earlier when we spoke about it, and I want to go back to that, is learning how to work. Is certifications, etc., is obviously important to get that, but I want to come back to this topic of the people who's watching. When I employ techie people, do I allow them to work from home 3 times a week, 2 times a week? Do they work at the office? If I have an office, and I want these people that we are trying to, the orchestrators of systems, right? Whether it's an admin or a dev or whatever the case might be, or a BA, what's good like in terms of environment for them to learn? And I'm not talking about a 40, 50-year-old. I'm talking about these young people we need to bring into the market.
I think a young person just starting off as a job, they need to be in the workplace. I think what is the frame of reference of what you can draw on? And when you don't have that ability, I mean, something simple like always having your camera off in a meeting.
Yeah.
I always joke, because one day I was listening to the radio and they were talking, people had to phone in about what you did in your meetings, your Zoom or your Teams meetings with the camera off. People were in spinning classes, people were, and I always think how much is lost when your camera's off. And yes, fair enough, connectivity is the issue and all of those kind of things. But when we are trying to build a workforce in this country, the foundation has got to be sufficient that people can really springboard from.
Yeah.
And when you haven't got the ability to give them a good frame of reference of what good looks like in terms of business, communication, punctuality, how you convey yourself, how you problem solve, all of those things, and you're stuck doing it in your lounge, or if you're lucky enough to have an office, you're very constrained. And I think therefore it takes us longer as a youngster coming into the workplace. It does take you longer to get them ramped up in terms of what we see and deem as professional and excellent.
Want to add on to that?
Yeah, I just think that, another part of learning the world of work, I mean, I remember in my first jobs how the fact that you were there, the person you reported to were there, or other senior people, you could really draw on this experience and learning from these people. Even if it's just a small little conversation whilst you pour yourself another cup of coffee or so on. But the person you directly reported to, because again, you start your career learning a skill, and that person is teaching you hands-on every day, and you ask questions the whole time. It's not the same as typing a question and getting an answer. A thing that I also think a lot about now in this world of AI, where everybody's saying, okay, well, all the entry-level work and jobs will go away, and then I'm thinking, the people who are making these decisions, what will their succession look like?
Yeah,
there are young people that needs to come in all the time and learn the world of work, and that kind of creates the talent pool. But there is something that we've lost during the pandemic, and learning from a mentor hands-on. And I think also for that reason why people have a strong focus in getting people together back in the office. But it's also not conducive to be at the office and sit in a meeting room on Teams. Then they're just doing the same thing somewhere else. I think businesses now have to be very intentional in creating collaboration opportunities where they see people are not collaborating, because the true magic, I think, happens in collaboration.